Dear sisters and brothers, we live in difficult and threatening times. We come together as European Christians and are shocked that war is back in the heart of Europe. We lament and pray together and try to understand what is going on in Europe. In our European churches, in my own church, the EKD, here in the Conference of European Churches, as well as in the WCC, we try to find a common testimony for peace and to work for an end of violence and war. And we ask how we can protect God's people in Europe and worldwide. Yes, we live in difficult and threatening times. However, I cannot and will not spare you my hopes and expectations as I look ahead to the 11th World Council of Churches Assembly to be held in September in Karlsrühe, southern Germany. The city is located at the border triangle of Germany, France, and Switzerland, near the French border. This is more than just geography. We are grateful for a long history of reconciliation between France and Germany and across Europe after 2 world wars, in which European Christian countries ended up bombing each other. Here I recall the declaration of the first WCC Assembly in Amsterdam in 1948. War is contrary to the will of God. Today as up-to-date as ever. Today as urgent as ever. The Assembly in the border triangle promotes cross-border dialogue and cooperation. It builds bridges instead of walls. The bridge connecting Kiel on the German side of the Rhine near Karlsruhe with Strasbourg in France is a symbol of a history of reconciliation. The bridge also forms the background for the Getty study and research program during the WCC Assembly, which brings 200 young participants from different church families and regions of the world to Karlsruhe. I am very pleased that we can carry out the planning and preparations for the Assembly in close cooperation with our neighbors and friends from France and Switzerland. This border triangle clearly shows one reason for my hope. Reconciliation and peace are possible, even after bitter fighting, disputes, and wars that have caused and left behind great suffering, destruction, and hostility. One example for reconciliation is my own church, the German Protestant Church, the EKD. In my opinion, it was a great blessing that she was accepted into the ecumenical community after the Stuttgart Declaration of Guilt in 1945. Since then, she has tried to support the WCC wherever possible, even to the point of inviting the ecumenical family to the assembly in Karlsruhe. The theme of the 11th Assembly is Christ's love moves the world to reconciliation and unity. The theme offers numerous aspects for theological reflection, worship, and meditation. The reference to the merciful and moving love of Christ, which reconciles and unites, is intended to give hope to the churches and to the whole world, amidst fear and fundamental existential, structural, and social questions arising in connecting with a global crisis like climate emergency, the COVID-19 pandemic, scandalous injustice and inequality as its symptoms, and now war. Reconciliation on the way to unity requires ongoing dialogue and trust, keeps renewing the mutual promise not to give up, but to want to stay together. We will stay together even if we as churches are struggling with each other. The second epistle of Paul to the church in Corinth speaks of this ministry of reconciliation. Whatever we do it out of the love that Christ has given us. It leaves us no other choice. God has appointed us to spread this message of reconciliation throughout the world. My expectation for the WCC Assembly is that there will be a real encounter. We in Europe need encounters with churches from all over the world. I hope that they will help us to look at our work and our role as churches from different perspectives. I long for impulses for our faith and a clear and unmistakable testimony for justice and peace, for hope and confidence. I anticipate an important boost for our ecumenical situation in Europe and in Germany. We often have the feeling that we have already clarified a lot theologically, but on a practical level, we do not yet dare to draw the conclusions. The Assembly and its witness of strengthening unity could help to be more consistent and courageous in our multilateral ecumenical cooperation with different churches on the ground. I expect that the Assembly will strengthen the role and responsibility of the churches in our society. The preparations show that secular, cultural, and political institutions are interested in the Assembly. They recognize that the churches and religious communities are important multipliers and drivers of social development, as we learned anew from the presentation in this European pre-Assembly meeting. I hope that the Assembly will send a wake-up call to the whole world, especially in a situation in which cohesion and closeness are being put to the test. Our vulnerability is coming into focus. The Assembly can send an important signal. Only together can we meet the challenges of this time. Those who only pursue their own interests cannot build a peaceful and just society. Privileges undermine constructive coexistence. Violence, racism, and injustice destroy a stable community. If we can counter these current trends not only with a clear message, but also with a living testimony of peace with justice, reconciliation, unity, then all our efforts will have been worthwhile. Europe needs the churches of the world to be present at the 11th Assembly as a visible sign of the one world we all long for. We long for peace and justice in Europe and in the world. And we know and we believe God is not a God of disorder, but a God of peace. I look forward to meeting many of you in person this September in Karlsruhe. Thank you very much.